it's time to empty the notebook with our sideline reporters. And who better to tell the stories of the game, what we might have missed, and what we should look forward to in the upcoming weeks. So let's go ahead and welcome in our reporters, Melanie Collins and Evan Washburn. Guys, what a great week of NFL football. You were both on the sidelines for two really great games, but I want to start with the hottest team, or the hottest division rather, in the game. Evan, the Steelers, they keep finding a way to win in the fourth quarter. What's been in the water that's making a difference in Pittsburgh?
Defense. And look, Pittsburgh's known for defense. They've had some of the legendary defenses in NFL history. And when you look at the numbers, at least some of the big picture numbers, this group doesn't fall into that category. But what they are a defense filled with second-year contract guys, as Mike Tomlin put it. These are future Hall of Famers and Cam Hayward and probably T.J. Watt, Pat Peterson in the back end there. And this is a group that gets better over the course of a game and has taken on the responsibility of winning games for Pittsburgh. So as we look at the numbers, and that was kind of the point to Kenny Pickett, and we go, how are the Steelers 6-3? Look at this defense and what they do late in games. They take the ball away. They like to have the responsibility in those big moments to make a play. They had 2 interceptions to close out the Packers. They had an interception to close out the Titans 10 days prior. They've had sacks late in games to close out the Ravens early in the season. They've got an interception from T.J. Watt against the Rams. So when you look at each one of their wins, I think the numbers become so much of the discussion point when it should fall on what plays are being made in the critical moments. And it's often being made by a defense that's littered with, again, possible future Hall of Famers, but a lot of guys that have played a ton of football in this league, so they're comfortable when maybe things don't go well early, knowing they can make a play late. And I think that has become the formula for the Steelers team. And when it comes to sustainability, I actually think this could be sustainable for Pittsburgh moving forward.
Yeah, our guy, Bryant McFadden, will love to hear that Steelers defense is helping the team move forward. They're currently in second in the division, though, behind the Ravens. But, Melanie, another team in second place, the Houston Texans. And I'm giving all the flowers to C.J. Stroud because he spent time with Tom Brady this offseason. Just how much has that relationship impacted his success on the field in just year one?
Yeah, you got to give C.J. Stroud the flowers, and it's impacted him a ton. In fact, I thought it was so interesting. We talked to him initially about why he chose Ohio State University, and he said he strategically chose that school because he knew it would be the hardest path for him. And he said, I remember watching documentaries growing up on players like Tom Brady and Michael Jordan, and what stood out to him about those GOATs, he called them, is that they always put themselves in the hardest positions because they knew that it would sharpen them and refine them and ultimately lead to them being great. And so he said, I chose Ohio State because it was far away from home. He's from the LA area. He said it was in the cold. It had more of a small town feel than what I'm used to. And it was a place where I knew a lot of people didn't believe in me. And he said, I was right. It was the hard path for me. And it certainly prepared me for the stage that I'm on now. And then he was able to spend some time with Tom Brady at a luncheon this summer. And he said, I don't typically write down advice that I get from anybody. He gets a lot of advice, but he said, I wrote down what Tom Brady told me. And a couple of the things that stood out were, number one, just always be a good teammate and take care of your brothers, and the rest will take care of itself. He said, you know, you look around these leagues and there are these super teams and you just expect that they're going to win championships, but they don't have that camaraderie. And he said, so always be a good teammate because that is the number one most important thing. And then number two, most important is that he said, never have a bad day. So when you come into the building, and if you are having a bad day, you can't let anybody else know that, whether it's in meeting rooms, with your attitude, with the way that you lead, with your work ethic. Just never show anyone else that you're having a bad day. And I thought that was a really cool thing that he shared with us from his time with Tom Brady this summer.
Listen, if I get a luncheon with Tom Brady, I'm going to have a notebook full of stuff that I'm writing down. So good for him to just pick up a couple of things there. But Melanie, another relationship we recently learned about for CJ is the one that he has with his father, who we've learned is currently in prison. Could you just tell us a little bit more about that connection that he's recently made with his dad?
Yeah, certainly. a tough story to talk about, a tough story to tell. And CJ was so gracious in talking with us about it on Saturday night in our meetings. CJ's dad was sentenced to 38 years in prison when he was just 13 years old, which makes all that he's doing that much more remarkable when you consider all that he's overcome. And CJ wasn't ready to forgive his dad for a long time until the last couple of years. He decided it was time to forgive him, and they now talk on a regular basis. When we were with CJ Saturday night, he told us he had just spoken with his dad from prison. His dad is able to watch his games on Sundays, and CJ is able to communicate with him via, sending photos and videos through a specific app that they're able to use. And it's just a remarkable story, the relationship that they've been able to sort of rekindle at this point in their lives. And Evan, you had that game against the Buccaneers, and after the game in his press conference, he took the time to speak publicly on prison reform, which is something that is very personal to him and that he believes in now. And he said, it's not an easy conversation to have, and it's not something that I like talking about publicly, but he wants anyone out there that might be going through something similar to have someone to relate to. And my favorite part about what he said was, he said, being a real man is being vulnerable. And so he wanted to come out publicly and speak about it, and he's been overwhelmed by the support he's gotten since.
Yeah, it just makes everything, as you mentioned, Melanie, everything that he's done as a football player, it sort of pales in comparison to the work he's doing off the field as well. So really remarkable from the rookie. Evan, back in the North, Jordan Love, he's not a rookie anymore, but this is his first season as the starter. And I feel like we haven't talked much about him this season, probably because the Packers are in a bit of a rebuild. But how should we be evaluating Love's performance so far?
Haley presented it perfectly. He is a rookie, and that's the reality, but it makes for a really challenging, maybe evaluation, but process moving forward if you're the Packers. And that was something that struck us during our preparation for this game. It's something, look, we got into over the course of the broadcast. You're going to talk about the quarterback for the Packers, but we didn't really delve into the situation facing Jordan Love, but also facing this organization and their path forward with Love. So he's in the fourth year of his career. He spent 3 years as a backup, played a total of 5 quarters, so basically a game and some change. So for all intents and purposes, he's being evaluated as a first-year player by GM Brian Gutekunst and their head coach Matt LaFleur. But then there are the contractual decisions to be made. Now, he signed what was a basic extension on his rookie deal to add a little bit more money since he's now a starter, but they're hoping to know by the end of this year, if at the latest middle of next year, hey, is this our guy? Are we moving forward with Jordan Love and inevitably paying him what is now upwards to $40 to at times $50 million a year to be a starting quarterback in this league? And what I think muddies the waters is everything around him so young. All of his pass catchers are first and second year guys. His tight ends are all rookies. He's got an offensive line that's working through a lot of things. And I think I was struck by our conversation with Jordan and with Matt LaFleur that this is a guy that has shown flashes of everything they want from the next franchise quarterback in that long line of basic Hall of Famers in Green Bay. But it's hard to get a true picture when the pieces around him don't always deliver the way they need to. And you saw that Sunday against the Steelers. There were moments where I thought Jordan Love looked every bit the guy you're going to give the bag to, as we like to say, with some of the deep passes he had. I thought he cut it loose like they wanted him to. But then there's moments where some of these young guys are dropping passes on third down to move the change, extend drives. And then there's a couple picks late in the game. Now, I wouldn't put all those on Jordan Love. They're just trying to make a play to stay in it. But I think, to your point, Haley, we're not talking enough about, because they're 3-6, the fact that Jordan Love is kind of in purgatory here, as are the Packers. And that's what makes the remainder of this year really interesting. But even going into next season, as they try to decide if he's going to be QB1 moving forward.
Yeah, purgatory, I think, is the perfect way to put that for the Packers right now. They get the Chargers next week. So week 10 is behind us. Week 11 is in front of us. But one constant week to week, Melanie, has been the absolute culture shift in that Texans facilities. Now, full disclosure, I'm from Dallas, so I never root from teams in Houston. But man, Miko Ryan, the way he has just changed everything about this team, this organization, just how did you see that change in Sunday's win?
It's incredible, especially when you think about how quickly DeMeco Ryans has done this. The confidence and the belief and the energy in this team is palpable. I couldn't believe it just being around them this weekend. It was my first time having the Texans this season, so I really had no idea until we got around them. And gosh, DeMeco Ryans, just his energy, being back home in Houston, you just feel it. And the players have rallied around him. They talk about what an incredible players coach he is, and they feel so comfortable with him. But yet he has that intensity, like they would run through a wall for him at any time. And you just look at DeMeco Ryans, he's got to be a Coach of the Year candidate at this point. And then CJ Stroud, front runner for Offensive Rookie of the Year, but also I would think would need to be in the MVP conversation at this point. They're back to having a winning record. And we talked to Jalen Petrie in our meetings, who's such a fun guy to talk to. And we said, how would you just describe the culture shift from last season to this season? And he used one word. He said electric. And the energy has just been incredible, whether it's in the meeting rooms or out at practices. He says everyone is just locked in. And the things that DeMeco Ryans demands of us are hard at times, but we know that when you're building something great, it's not always going to be easy. And they really feel like they're on the verge of something spectacular in Houston. And we all know how powerful that can be.
Yeah, those MVP chants you're talking about, Evan Washburn, that's music to your ears, man. You mentioned that last week. Before we get to that, though, we talked about the Steelers defense earlier, but I want to talk to you about the other side of the ball. They had a season-high 205 yards on the ground, about a 20-yard improvement, better than their season average. It was also the 9th straight one-score victory for this team. Is there hope for improvement on this Pittsburgh offense?
It's been such a lightning rod topic, Haley, in Pittsburgh and for those that cover the league. What's going on with this Steelers offense? How much of it is on Matt Canada? How much of it is on Kenny Pickett? How much is it the pieces around them? And the thing that struck me yesterday is this group is making progress. They are getting better. It's incremental. It's not necessarily going to satisfy those that want them to be an explosive group. I'm not sure that'll ever be the case, but I don't think it needs to be the case. This bookends how we started this. The defense is going to win Pittsburgh games and take them to the playoffs and maybe win them a playoff game if that's to happen, in my opinion. But I think this offense is getting better. I think the Matt Canada move down to the sideline, while superficial in some sides of it is also important because he's just so much more active with everybody, and you can see the impact that it has. And you mentioned that number, the run game. If they're going to run for 200 yards or close to it, that's everything this offense needs to be. Yes, they want to get George Pickens more involved. He definitely wants to get more involved. I think those things will come, and I think the fact that they have not regressed from what I can see from where they were maybe a few weeks ago and are starting to make improvements, again, puts Pittsburgh in this place where the numbers are always going to work against them based off of the way they started this year. But I walked away from the game yesterday thinking, man, they've got some odd formula here that the word sustainable has been used so much when describing this team. I do think it's sustainable to some degree.
Hey, look, a win is a win. It goes in that W column, and I'm sure that's all they care about. Melanie and Evan, always so good to hear from you. We appreciate your time. And, of course, the NFL on CBS continues into Week 11. Those Steelers we just talked about will take on the Browns and that stacked defense, while the Texans are back home to host the Cardinals. Those games and more can be found on CBS, or you can stream them on Paramount+.